Welcome everyone to Monday Morning Morons for February 11th, 2019. This week, let's begin with the big news. The green pile of shit. Ms. Cortez finally got around to releasing her so-called plan for America's future, and of course there were the predictable reactions. The extreme left hails her plan as a stroke of genius, and her more extreme critics were left wondering what kindergarten class wrote this shit. Me? I'm left wondering, what plan? This is conciliatory word salad full of vague and undefined promises of utopia. Not a hell of a lot more than that. Now, I'm not going to go line by line through this whole pile of shit because, frankly, that would take too long, and I really don't want to have to read the whole nauseating thing again. But it's linked below along with a fact for anyone who hasn't read it yet. And I encourage you to do so because you're not likely to hear much truth from any of the mainstream media sources about what it actually says. If you want to know, you'll have to read it for yourself. No one is going to be objective about this thing. And yes, that includes me too. I'm about to cherry pick the shit out of it because, as I said, I'm not going to go over it line by line and treat the audience like invalids who need to be force-fed the information. It's there in the description, and I'm confident you're all capable of reading it for yourselves. Besides, it's too fucking long to do that anyway. Now, the first thing I'm going to skip is the beginning. Why? Well, because it's just a laundry list of complaints cited from different reports. Only one of which was actually mentioned, so I've no damn clue where she came up with the rest of this drivel, nor can I verify that any of it is actually true. However, I can point to page 3, section 3C, as clear indication that you're misrepresenting data to suit a narrative and going off the topic of climate change and diverging into nothing more than feminist talking points. Section C. A gender earnings gap that results in women earning approximately 80% as much as men at the median. I would like to thank you for at least getting its name right. Yes, earnings gap, not wage gap. So thanks for that at least. However, as most of my audience will already know, this is true and yet has fuck all to do with sexism, systemic or otherwise, that you like to pretend is the root cause. When relevant variables are accounted for, i.e. hours worked, same job, same education, same experience, etc., the wage gap almost entirely disappears, and yet the earnings gap remains. Why? Because it is almost entirely caused by personal choices. This is not new information, so I don't think we need to dwell on that point. However, for the context of this proposal, I'm left asking, what the fuck does this have to do with climate change? How will just paying women more to do less magically stop the globe from warming, I wonder? Also tends to make me question whether or not anything else you cited here is even true. But, my time is limited. I can't make verifying and or debunking every crazy thing you say a full-time thing. I'd go broke and end up homeless because you say so many crazy things I wouldn't have time for anything else. I'm afraid you have me at a disadvantage. Talking shit doesn't take any time at all. Finding the facts to refute that bullshit does. Anyway, let's focus in on what it is this Green New Deal is actually proposing we do to fix these supposed problems we have, whether they're real or made up bullshit. Because that is my key complaint about the entire document here, and it flies in the face of some of the folks wandering around saying, well, at least she has a plan. Does she? Let's see, shall we? As with any plan, we'll begin with the goal, or in this case, goals, plural. What is it this Green New Deal is supposed to accomplish? Resolved that it is the sense of the House of Representatives that, 1, it is the duty of the federal government to create a Green New Deal. A, to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions through a fair and just transition for all communities and workers. B, to create millions of good, high-wage jobs and ensure prosperity and economic security for all people of the United States. C, to invest in the infrastructure and industry of the United States to sustainably meet the challenges of the 21st century. D, to secure for all people of the United States for generations to come clean air and water, climate and community resiliency, healthy food, access to nature, and a sustainable environment. And E, to promote justice and equity by stopping current, preventing future, and repairing historic oppression of indigenous communities, communities of color, migrant communities, deindustrialized communities, depopulated rural communities, the poor, low-income workers, women, the elderly, the unhoused, people with disabilities, and youth, referred to in this resolution as frontline and vulnerable communities. Okay, so ignoring the more than obvious intersectional babbling bullshit, the fact that 3 of your 5 goals here have absolutely nothing to do with climate change at all, and the 2 that do are watered down by even more intersectional social justice woo, here we have what Ms. Cortez is trying to achieve. Great, super. Now then, this is what separates a plan from a wish list. How do you intend to achieve any of this? 2. The goals described in paragraphs A through E of paragraph 1, referred to in this resolution as the Green New Deal goals, should be accomplished through a 10-year national mobilization, referred to in this resolution as the Green New Deal mobilization, that will require the following goals and projects. Okay, that's a good start. Here's what we want. Here's how we're going to get it. Really, I'm not kidding. That's exactly how you lay out a plan. Do go on. Building resiliency against climate change-related weather, such as extreme weather, including by leveraging funding and providing investments for community-defined projects and strategies. Okay. This should have been in the goals section because this is not a plan, it's another goal. How do you know it's not a plan? Because there is no how included here. How do you build this proposed resiliency? What is this proposed resiliency? What does it look like? What does it do? Does it prevent something? Does it manage something? Does it change something? How do we build it if we don't know what it is? See the problem? I can't agree or disagree because you haven't said anything of substance here. It's just woo. Repairing and upgrading the infrastructure in the United States, including by limiting pollution and greenhouse gas emissions as much as technologically feasible, by guaranteeing universal access to clean water, by reducing the risks posed by flooding and other climate impacts, and by ensuring that any infrastructure bill considered by Congress addresses climate change. Again, how? I mean, number 2 there is basically just saying, I promise clean water. Well, great. Now what happens when you can't deliver? Did you even consider that? Is there another proposal somewhere that addresses that? I don't know, but that's the closest you've come yet to actually doing anything at all. The rest of these are, yet again, more wishes, not plans. How do you propose we eliminate pollution? How much do you propose is technologically feasible? How do you reduce the risk of flooding? Do you propose we build something or move people away from flood-prone areas? New building codes required in those areas, perhaps? What? And exactly how should infrastructure bills address climate change? I mean, you've said any bill should, but how? What exactly counts as addressing climate change? And if you've already addressed it with bill number 1, do you still need to address it again in bill number 2? I mean, I don't know. That sounds rather redundant and silly to me, but what do I know? Again, none of these things constitutes a plan. It's conciliatory word salad, nothing more. C, meaning 100% of the power demand in the United States through clean, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources, including by dramatically expanding and upgrading existing renewable power sources and by deploying new capacity. Aha! Finally, something with a how in there. Now, I could nitpick and say that you're remarkably unspecific here, but I won't. You want all power to come from renewables, and you propose we expand what we already have and build more of it. Great. At least that counts as a plan. It's seriously lacking rather important details, mind you, but given the rest of the shit you proposed isn't a plan at all, I'll let you have this one. How you intend to pay for this investment is something I suspect we're not going to agree on, but for now, I'll let this one slide. D. Building or upgrading to energy efficient, distributed, and smart power grids, and working to ensure affordable access to electricity. E. Upgrading all existing buildings in the United States and building new buildings to achieve maximal energy efficiency, water efficiency, safety, affordability, comfort, and durability, including through electrification. Well, I'm just nitpicking format here, but these two really belong under the previous section as they're just more how you plan to achieve zero emissions. However, I will need something far more specific than E provides. For instance, define maximal energy efficiency. How much is that? Is it a constant or does it change over time? For example, if I build a house today that is 90% energy efficient, do I have to upgrade it tomorrow when we learn a new and better way, or is that 90% still good enough? Also, an energy efficient factory is probably still not going to be as energy efficient as a private home, is it? So, is it the same for all buildings, or does it depend on the size and use of the building? Define affordability. Affordable for whom? Affordable for a corporation or for an individual? Affordable for the poorest person in the country? The richest? Some arbitrary wealth level in between? Define what you mean by comfort. Who decides what's comfortable in my house? Me? You? Some random bureaucrat at HUD? Define durability. How durable does it have to be to pass muster? Is durability a constant no matter the location or not? For instance, does it have to stand through an earthquake if it's built in Minnesota? How about hurricane proof if it's built in Arizona? What counts as durable enough? So many questions left to ask for such a tiny part, don't you think? I'd say that definitely doesn't count as a plan anymore. If I end up with more questions after you lay out your plan than I had before it, then it's really not a plan, is it? F. Spurring massive growth in clean manufacturing in the United States and removing pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from manufacturing and industry as much as is technologically feasible, including by expanding renewable energy manufacturing and investing in existing manufacturing and industry. Invest in industry, specifically green manufacturing. Great. Finally, something specific. Nope, not going to mention that all this really is a federal government takeover of public utilities. Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't you know that? That's right. Most utilities in the United States are already publicly owned. And they're running super great, right? That's why we need more of it. Not going to mention that the carbon footprint and environmental impact to even produce the materials used in these renewable energy sources is greater than the CO2 they will reduce through their lifetime of operation either. Nope. You have a plan here, so hurrah for that, I guess. G. Working collaboratively with farmers and ranchers in the United States to eliminate pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the agricultural sector as much as is technologically feasible, including by supporting family farming, by investing in sustainable farming and land use practices that increase soil health, and by building a more sustainable food system that ensures universal access to healthy food. I'm already getting tired of saying this, but there's more questions here than answers. Does family farming reduce pollution? I mean, I can only assume you think it does if you're proposing more of it, but I've seen no evidence to support that. In fact, given the costs of these new technologies you're proposing we mandate, seems more likely that corporate farmers are going to be the only ones who can even afford to bother. What is this more sustainable food system you speak of? Define it. Lay it out for us. What's it look like? How does it work? How is it better than what we already have? Does it do something different, or does it just have a government bureaucrat in charge of it? Define healthy food while you're at it. Scientists seem to keep changing their minds about what is or is not healthy for us. You may not remember it because you're a relative babe, but there was a time when eggs were simply going to kill us all, milk caused cancer, and fish was going to save us all until they decided the mercury in it was going to kill us all. So how could I make sure that everyone everywhere has access to healthy food when I can't even decide what healthy is? This isn't a plan, it's just more woo. Okay, look, there's, about 6 more pages of this crap? I'm not going to go through all of it like this. I'm sure you get the point by now. The point is, she hasn't offered a plan. She's offered a socialist utopian wet dream wish list. That's about all she's done here. This entire thing is high on rhetorical gibberish and pie-in-the-sky promises, but seriously lacking anything approaching a plan on how to actually achieve any of it, and the parts that do actually count as a plan are incredibly bad plans that I'd really rather not have. So please, stop telling me about her plan. She doesn't have one. She has some half-baked, poorly defined rhetoric. That's all she has. Okay, Bob, let's swim to the shallower end of the bullshit pool and stop talking about this green pile of shit already. What's next? Newest affront to academic freedom takes root. A number of colleges and universities are now requiring current and future professors to explain how they would commit to and foster diversity, equity, and inclusion if promoted or hired. Such commitments, which often range from 1 to 2 pages, are known as diversity statements in academic circles and have become increasingly more prevalent in job advertisements. In addition to explaining how their future work would increase diversity and inclusion on campus, scholars are also expected to explain how their past work has affected diversity, a recent report in the Chronicle of Higher Education showed. Some institutions, such as UCLA, now require diversity statements for tenure and promotion. Other schools that have considered or currently have policies on diversity statements in place include the University of Michigan and the University of Washington. Yep, the social justice wankers are now the gatekeepers of academia. Want to be a college professor? Describe to us how you will submit yourself to the feminist cult and promote our social justice causes, or, well, there's always another job, isn't there? Bye-bye. The only ray of sunshine left here is this. Any intellectual can find a way to make a statement that meets some requirement, Connolly added. In other words, any even remotely intelligent person can put together a statement of psycho-babbling buzzword goo good enough to pass muster because that's all it really is anyway. Nonsensical bullshit. However, this is how they're trying to ensure their continued control of higher education. You cannot teach or get promoted unless you submit your brain to the Borg first. Be afraid, people. It won't be long before they filter this shit down to secondary and primary schools, too. Every teacher everywhere will have to be accepted by the mob before they're allowed to teach anything to anyone, which means the only thing they'll be teaching is this intersectional bullshit. Watch your kids. Pay attention to what they're being taught, because I guarantee you this horse shit is already in your school, too. All right, Bob. The green crap took up a bit of time. Let's jump on to the toxic masculinity piece. UCF faculty member, ex-Memphis Grizzlies exec, killed by wife who said he stabbed himself, records show. The wife of a University of Central Florida faculty member was arrested Wednesday after she allegedly stabbed her 65-year-old spouse to death in January and attempted to cover up the murder by saying he stabbed himself, court records show. Danielle Justine Redlick, 45, was arrested on charges of second-degree murder and tampering with evidence more than 3 weeks after her husband, Michael Redlick, was found dead inside their home in Winter Park, Florida, the Orlando Sentinel reported. Danielle Redlick called 911 on January 12th and said her husband had died about 11 hours after she claimed the initial altercation occurred. Records show she told the 911 dispatcher that her husband was stiff and he might have had a heart attack, I don't know. She then changed her story and said she and her husband had a fight and that led to him stabbing himself. I ran and hid in the bathroom, and when I came out, I was trying to help him and saw he was lying in blood, and then I tried to help him and I couldn't, Redlick said, according to the charging affidavit. I've been trying to figure out what to do. Lying in a pool of blood, heart attack. Yeah, I can see where she might have guessed wrong on that. Not like she's a doctor or anything, you know. When police arrived, however, the couple's house smelled like bleach, the Orlando Sentinel reported. Bloody towels surrounded Michael Redlick's body, which was located on the floor near the entrance, and his jeans were stained with blood. Police noticed some of the stains had circular marks on them that indicated someone may have tried to clean them up. A trail of blood was also spotted leading to the master bedroom. Redlick stuck with her story and insisted to investigators that her husband was drunk and stabbed himself. She said she was eating a McDonald's hamburger when her husband grabbed it, took a bite, and spit it in her face. She also claimed he took a serrated kitchen knife out of her hand and began making stabbing motions toward himself. Wait, so you were just eating a hamburger, totally minding your own business, while holding a serrated knife? Interesting. I mean, I can't say I've ever seen anyone do that, but, okay, some people are weird. Weird doesn't make you a murderer. Redlick said she came out of the bathroom to find her husband on the floor and used towels to clean up the blood because she kept slipping on it while trying to find her phone, records show. That seems reasonable. I mean, you can't really help the guy if you keep slipping while you're, walking back and forth, I guess. Not sure how that's helping, but, whatever. Clean up the puddle of blood first, and then you can help. Danielle Redlick remembered lying next to the victim, thinking, "What am I going to do?" records stated. Well, grab some towels and some bleach and clean up the puddles, obviously. Wouldn't want to slip while you're lying on the floor next to him or anything. Redlick's elaborate story began to unravel after the medical examiner ruled Michael Redlick's death a homicide and found his stab wounds were not self-inflicted. Some of his injuries also appeared defensive, the medical examiner said. Investigators also discovered Danielle Redlick was on her phone 2 hours before she called 911 to report the death, despite insisting she couldn't find the device. Well, okay, wait a second. She was on the phone 2 hours ago. Then her husband mysteriously stabbed himself several times and collapsed on the floor in a puddle of blood. Then she can't find her phone. And finally, she calls 911. So she found the phone then. It was in the bathroom, wasn't it? And you totally forgot where you left it for 2 hours as you rushed in and out grabbing towels to clean up all those blood puddles from your husband's apparent heart attack so you could help him, right? I mean, that totally makes sense. Court records show Danielle Redlick filed for divorce last March and said her marriage was irretrievably broken, but the case was dismissed due to lack of action by the 45-year-old, the Orlando Sentinel reported. The couple have 2 children together. See, she changed her mind and decided that she didn't really want a divorce. Clearly, she was still deeply in love and wanted to fix their marriage. I don't see any reason here at all why she was even suspected, much less arrested. Bah! I explained her story, Bob. It makes total sense. And the defensive wounds don't prove anything. Forensic pathology isn't an exact science, For all we know, that guy was defending himself from himself. Toxic masculinity does make us all crazy, It's a mental illness. Just ask the APA. That's it for this week, folks. Remember the social justice mantra: women are victims, men are oppressors, and feminism is just about equality. I'll see you all next time.